They laughed at the new cleaner, but 3 days later, she walked in wearing a blazer and fired the entire management team. They thought she was just a cleaner, a woman with rubber gloves, a mop, and a quiet face no one bothered to look at twice. But 3 days later, those same people would be sitting in a conference room with their mouths dry and their hands shaking as she read out their fates one by one. This story takes place in Tucson, Arizona, inside a mid-sized marketing firm that prided itself on family culture. The kind of place where the walls were covered with framed motivational quotes and the break room always smelled like reheated leftovers. To outsiders, it looked like a steady job, a safe workplace. But behind those glass doors, something much darker was happening. Angela Cortez was 49 years old when she walked through those doors on a Monday morning. She wore gray cleaning pants, a plain polo, and carried a bucket full of supplies. Nothing about her appearance screamed authority. In fact, her silence made her invisible to most. A few employees noticed her right away, though, and not in a kind way. "Guess the new cleaner couldn't even find a decent uniform," one young guy muttered near the coffee machine. His name was Kyle Benton, a project coordinator who liked to think of himself as untouchable because he golfed with management on weekends. His coworker, Dina Jacobs, smirked but didn't say anything. Still, the message was clear. Angela was already the butt of jokes, and she hadn't even emptied a trash can yet. Angela heard it. She heard everything. But her face didn't move. She simply adjusted her gloves, nodded politely, and kept walking toward the offices. If anyone had paid closer attention, they would have noticed her eyes scanning the room, taking in details with precision. Who was whispering to who, which desks were piled high with overdue work, which managers walked past without greeting their staff. But no one paid attention to the cleaner. By noon, she had already witnessed 2 supervisors barking at their teams like drill sergeants. She saw a woman in tears near the copy machine while her manager scrolled through his phone, ignoring her. Angela moved quietly, sweeping, emptying bins, dusting shelves, but her mind was recording every interaction like a hidden camera. The irony was thick. While employees laughed about her, she was studying them like a chessboard, already mapping out moves they couldn't see coming. But the real tension was about to begin, because by the end of the first day, Angela wasn't the only one noticing strange behavior. But the office gossip was about to twist in ways no one expected. Angela moved from desk to desk with her cart, working slowly, almost deliberately. She wasn't rushing. She wanted time to listen, time to watch. People rarely guarded their words around cleaners. In their minds, a cleaner was background noise, someone outside the circle of importance. At one point, she pushed her cart into the corner office belonging to Richard Lowell, the branch manager. He was in his mid-50s, balding, with a loud voice that carried through walls. Richard was the type who believed every success of the company was because of him, and every failure was the fault of those beneath him. "Make sure the quarterly numbers don't show up looking weak, or I'll personally see to it that someone gets replaced," he barked into his headset. Angela bent down to empty his trash. The can was full of crumpled receipts, fast food wrappers, and shredded notes. She said nothing, but her eyes landed on one crumpled envelope marked reimbursement. Richard glanced at her briefly, then waved his hand as if shooing a fly. "Just leave it. Maintenance comes in too often as it is," he muttered. Angela simply smiled, lifted the bag anyway, and said, "I'll take care of it." Her tone was calm, respectful. To Richard, she was invisible again. To Angela, he had just exposed a small crack. Across the hall, Kyle and Dina were leaning against the wall, whispering. "Did you see the way she was snooping in Richard's office?" Kyle said, smirking. "She's probably desperate to make a good impression," Dina replied, rolling her eyes. "It's just a cleaning job." Kyle laughed. "Give it a week. She'll be gone. They never last here." Angela rolled her cart by, catching their voices mid-sentence. She kept her gaze steady on the floor, but inside she thought, they're louder than they realize. By the end of her shift, she had noted something important. There was a culture of intimidation that trickled down from management. Supervisors snapped at assistants dumped stress on interns, and everyone looked over their shoulders like they were waiting to be caught making a mistake. It wasn't just toxic, it was systematic. Angela clocked out quietly at 6 p.m., slipping out through the side exit without anyone noticing. To the staff, she was just another cleaner on her first day. To Angela, it was confirmation. The rumors the board had heard were real, maybe even worse than expected. But on the second day, the laughter aimed at Angela was about to get louder and crueler. Tuesday morning arrived with the desert sun pouring through the glass windows of the building. The office smelled of burnt coffee and the clatter of keyboards mixed with the buzz of low conversation. Angela came in at her usual quiet pace, carrying her bucket and mop. Kyle spotted her immediately. He leaned toward Dina and whispered, just loud enough for others nearby to hear, "There's our undercover FBI agent again. Look at her, scanning the place like she's on some mission." Dina chuckled, shaking her head. "Please. She's probably just trying to figure out how to stretch her paycheck." A few more coworkers overheard, and the laughter spread. Angela could feel eyes on her as she pushed her cart into the hallway. She ignored them, but her ears stayed sharp. Near the break room, Jasmine Ortega, a junior designer, approached Angela timidly. Jasmine was different. She had a kind face, maybe mid-20s, and she didn't join the mockery. "Hi," she said softly. "Do you need any help with the trash in here? Sometimes the bins get stuck." Angela smiled faintly. "Thank you, but I've got it." Jasmine hesitated before adding, "I just wanted to say, don't mind them. Some people here act like they're in high school." Angela looked at her, her eyes softening for the first time. "Thank you for saying that." Not everyone has the courage to notice Jasmine nodded and quickly left, glancing nervously over her shoulder as if afraid to be caught being decent. Meanwhile, Angela's quiet observations continued. She noticed managers cutting out early, but telling their teams to stay until the job is done. She noticed expense folders left carelessly on desks, stuffed with receipts that didn't match company projects. And she noticed how every joke about her seemed to come from the same circle of people: Kyle, Dina, and Richard at the top. At one point, Angela walked past a closed-door meeting. Inside, voices were raised. "You can't just push numbers around, Richard. It's going to catch up to us," a voice said. It sounded like Paul Granger, the finance lead. Richard shot back, "It's my branch, Paul. If you want to keep your seat, you'll follow my lead. Nobody's checking anyway." Angela paused for only a second outside the door before moving along. No one noticed her. No one ever did. The day ended with another round of snickers from Kyle as Angela passed his desk. "Careful, guys. The cleaner's probably recording us," he joked. Angela glanced at him, her expression unreadable, and replied softly, "People record themselves every day without realizing it." Kyle blinked, confused, then laughed it off. But something about her tone made Dina shift uncomfortably. But by the third day, the mockery would stop feeling like a game and start looking like a mistake. By Wednesday morning, word had spread around the office that the new cleaner had a strange way about her. The whispers grew into open mockery. Angela could hear it the moment she walked in. Kyle leaned against the reception desk, loud enough for the receptionist and 3 others to hear. "Bet she doesn't even know how to run that mop. Probably just here because nobody else would hire her." The receptionist, Tracy Powell, gave a half-hearted laugh. "Stop. She can probably hear you, so what?" Kyle shrugged. "She should be grateful someone's paying her." Angela passed by without looking up. Her cart rattled over the tile, her face calm as ever. Inside, she was cataloging each name, each face, each careless insult. Later that morning, Richard Lowell stormed out of his office, red in the face. "Where's that cleaner?" "My desk is still dusty," he barked. Angela appeared at the doorway, rag in hand. "I can take care of it now, sir." Richard scoffed. "Sir? Don't bother with formalities. Just get it done right." For once, Angela stepped into his office, moving deliberately as she wiped down the desk. Her eyes landed on another envelope left half open, this one labeled Client Funds. Inside, she caught a glimpse of receipts from a steakhouse, a golf outing, and luxury hotel stays. She kept wiping without hesitation, sliding the papers back as if she hadn't noticed. When she finished, Richard waved her off with a dismissive flick of his hand. "Finally. Took you long enough." Out in the hallway, Kyle and Dina were waiting. Kyle smirked, leaning close enough to whisper, "I swear, it's like she thinks she's the queen of this place." "Just give her a broom and crown." Dina giggled, but her voice dropped. "You know, sometimes the way she looks at people, it's like she knows something." Kyle shrugged. "She's a cleaner. What could she possibly know?" Angela wheeled her cart past them without a word, but this time she didn't smile. During lunch, the break room filled with chatter, and Angela overheard Dina bragging to 2 interns about how management always covers for each other and nobody can touch them. The interns laughed nervously, unsure if they were supposed to agree. Angela poured herself a small cup of water, her voice soft but cutting through the noise. Funny how people think no one is watching when the wrong people always are. The room went silent for a moment. Dina's face tightened, but she forced a laugh. Wow. The cleaner speaks. Angela placed her cup in the sink, wiped her hands with a napkin, and said evenly, "Sometimes the smallest voices carry the heaviest truth." Then she left the room without waiting for a response. The silence she left behind was louder than Kyle's laughter, but the real silence would come later, when everyone realized exactly who Angela was. By Wednesday afternoon, Angela had built a mental map of the office. She knew which cubicles belonged to the workhorses who never got credit. She knew which managers slipped out for 2-hour lunches and came back smelling like whiskey. And she knew who the bullies were, the same faces that mocked her every chance they got. She also noticed something else: documents being left where they shouldn't be, expense forms tossed in the recycling bin, company credit cards in unlocked drawers, reports doctored with whiteout and reprinted. She didn't need to snoop. The carelessness of management handed her evidence on a silver platter. While emptying a bin near finance, Angela found a draft of a reimbursement form. The numbers didn't line up. A $4,000 client dinner in Phoenix was marked as a team-building expense. She slipped the page back into the trash and continued on as if she hadn't seen a thing. Later, she passed the copy room where Richard was cornering Paul Granger, the finance lead. "You're not turning in those numbers until I say so," Richard snapped. Paul's voice trembled. "But corporate will ask why the reports are late." "Then make something up," Richard growled. "If you like your paycheck, you'll do as you're told." Angela busied herself with the recycling bin just outside the doorway, her ears catching every word. Paul's silence told her all she needed to know. Fear ran this office more than leadership did. That evening, after most staff had left, Angela lingered. She moved through the rows of desks, tidying quietly, her eyes scanning. In Dina's top drawer, left slightly ajar, were receipts stapled to blank forms. In the manager's lounge, half-empty bottles of expensive whiskey sat in a cabinet labeled office supplies. Angela didn't take anything. She didn't need to. She had the kind of memory that didn't forget details. By the time she pushed her cart back to the supply closet, she had enough mental evidence to paint a clear picture. This office wasn't just toxic, it was corrupt. But Angela's expression remained calm as ever. To anyone watching, she was just a cleaner finishing her shift. Inside, though, she knew something else. Her time was almost up. The board hadn't sent her here to watch forever. They wanted answers and action. But no one in that office was prepared for the action Angela was about to take. Thursday morning started like any other. Emails flying, printers jammed, voices overlapping in the hallways. But the mood shifted when Angela walked in. People didn't laugh as freely anymore. Some still snickered, but others had started noticing the way she carried herself, steady and composed, like someone who belonged more than she should. Kyle, of course, couldn't resist. "Morning, Your Majesty," he said loudly as she wheeled her cart past his desk. A few chuckles followed. Angela paused just long enough to look at him. "Funny thing about titles," she said softly. "They change faster than people expect." The chuckles died quickly. Kyle forced a laugh, but his shoulders tightened. Later that day, Richard called a sudden meeting with his management team in the main conference room. Angela just happened to be mopping the hallway outside. The door didn't close all the way. Richard's voice boomed. "I don't care what corporate is asking for. We'll send them numbers that look clean. As long as nobody squeals, they'll never know the difference." Paul's voice cracked. "This is getting risky, Richard. Someone's going to—" "Enough!" Richard barked. "I built this branch. I decide what gets reported. Anyone who can't handle it can pack their desk." Angela moved her mop slowly across the tiles, every word sinking in. She didn't need a recorder. The meeting was loud enough to be remembered in detail. That afternoon, Jasmine, the junior designer, caught up with Angela near the elevators. Her voice was hushed, almost trembling. "I don't know if you've noticed, but things aren't right here. People get pushed out if they ask too many questions." Angela studied her for a moment, then leaned closer. "I've noticed." "More than you think," Jasmine frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Angela gave a small, knowing smile. "Sometimes the truth is bigger than the job you see me doing." Before Jasmine could press further, the elevator dinged, and Angela wheeled her cart inside. The doors closed, leaving Jasmine staring at her reflection in the stainless steel panel. Back in the office, whispers began spreading again, but they sounded different now. Less mocking, more uncertain. The cleaner wasn't acting like a cleaner, and the way she spoke left people uneasy, as though she knew things she shouldn't. By the end of the day, Angela had made her decision. She wouldn't wait for another report to land on the board's desk. The office deserved the truth, now. But the next morning, she wouldn't come in with a mop. She'd come in with authority. Friday morning felt different before the first cup of coffee even hit the break room. Angela arrived not in her gray cleaner's uniform, but in a navy blazer and black slacks. She carried no mop, no gloves, no bucket, just a slim leather folder tucked under her arm. The receptionist, Tracy, nearly dropped her pen. Angela? Angela gave her a calm nod. Good morning. Would you let everyone know there's an all-staff meeting in the conference room at 9? Tracy blinked. Wait, you mean you're calling a meeting? Yes, Angela replied firmly. It's not optional. Word spread like wildfire. By 9 o'clock, the conference room was packed. Employees squeezed into chairs, some standing along the walls. Kyle and Dina exchanged confused looks. Richard, red-faced and impatient, sat at the head of the table, tapping his pen against the glass. Angela walked to the front. For the first time all week, every eye was on her. She set the folder on the table, opened it, and spoke clearly. My name is Angela Cortez. I am not your cleaner. I am a regional director sent by the board of this company. I was here this week to observe operations after receiving multiple complaints about misconduct. The room froze. Someone gasped. Kyle's smirk vanished instantly. Dina's jaw tightened. Richard's face drained of color. Angela continued, her voice calm but steady, every word cutting through the silence. What I found was worse than expected. I witnessed employees mocked and disrespected. I observed falsified expense reports. I heard managers openly discuss manipulating numbers to deceive corporate, and I saw leaders who used fear, not guidance, to control their teams. Richard slammed his palm on the table. This is ridiculous. You think anyone's going to believe a cleaner over management? Angela didn't flinch. She looked him straight in the eye. I don't need them to believe me. I have more than enough evidence to show the board, and they already know I'm here. A murmur spread through the room. Paul, the finance lead, spoke up for the first time, his voice trembling but loud enough. She's telling the truth. Richard's been pressuring me for months to falsify reports. Gasps broke out. Dina shifted uncomfortably, whispering something to Kyle, who suddenly looked like he wanted to melt into his chair. Angela closed her folder and stood tall. Effective immediately, the management team, Richard Lowell, Dina Jacobs, and Kyle Benton, you are terminated. Security will escort you out. The rest of you, you deserve better leadership and you'll have it. The room erupted into stunned silence. Employees looked at each other, then at Angela, then back again. Some tried to hide their smiles. Others sat in shock, unable to process what had just happened. Richard stood up, furious, but 2 security guards appeared at the door, summoned by the board itself. They motioned for him to leave. Dina followed reluctantly, pale and tight-lipped. Kyle muttered under his breath, but no one cared. Angela waited until the 3 were gone before speaking again. The truth is simple. No one is above accountability, and no one should be judged by appearances. Remember that. But what mattered most came after: the relief, the gratitude, and the lesson the staff would carry forward. The conference room slowly emptied after the storm had passed. Some employees whispered to each other, still stunned. Others just sat quietly, letting the weight of what they had witnessed sink in. Jasmine Ortega lingered near the back, her eyes fixed on Angela. Finally, she stepped forward. I knew something was off this week, but I didn't think... She shook her head. I didn't think you were the one who could actually change things. Angela gave her a small smile. Change never comes from one person alone. It comes when people stop being afraid to tell the truth. Paul, the finance lead, stepped closer. His voice was shaky, but there was relief in it. Thank you. I thought I was alone in this. I thought if I spoke up, I'd lose everything. Angela placed a hand on the folder. Sometimes, silence costs more than speaking. You don't have to be afraid anymore. By noon, word had spread across the building. Employees who had once laughed at Angela now looked at her with something else, Respect. Some even apologized in passing, though Angela didn't dwell on it. She wasn't here for apologies. She was here to make things right. Later that evening, as Angela prepared to leave, Jasmine caught her one last time near the exit. "So, will we ever see you again?" she asked softly. Angela paused, adjusting her blazer. "Maybe not. My job is to step in when the board needs answers, but this office doesn't need me to stay. It needs all of you to decide what kind of place you want it to be." Jasmine nodded, her eyes shining. "We won't forget what you did." Angela walked out into the fading Arizona sunlight, the sound of the office fading behind her. For the first time that week, she allowed herself a deep breath. The work was done. Justice had been served. And an office that once thrived on intimidation now had a chance to build something healthier. The moral was clear. Power isn't always loud, and strength doesn't always wear a suit. Sometimes it walks in quietly with a mop and gloves, watching, waiting, and reminding us all never to underestimate the people around us, because appearances can deceive. But truth always reveals itself. So the next time you're tempted to laugh at someone, to dismiss them because of the job they do or the clothes they wear, remember this story. You never know who holds the real authority or how quickly everything can change. And if this story made you stop and think, share it with someone else. Let it be a reminder that respect should be the baseline, not the exception.